Welcome to Get It Done Entrepreneurs, where we talk with founders of companies who bet on themselves and won. My name is Rich LeBrun, and I am the founder and CEO of LeBrun Advisory Group. You can find us at rlebrun.com. Our mission is to help our clients build wealth through business ownership. Stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Our special guest today is Dr. Robert Danziger. Dr. Danziger is Managing Director and CEO of Kamoh Capital Management. He is an MD, MBA, is a professor of medicine, pharmacology, physiology at the University of Illinois at Chicago for over 22 years. He has been a physician since 1980, graduated from Duke University, and received his MD and MBA from the University of Chicago. Dr. Danziger has published over 50 original research papers and numerous reviews and book chapters, and he teaches medical students, residents, and fellows. Robert is a co-author with his wife of the book, The Determined Patient, which can be found on Amazon, and which, just a little note, I just bought for myself, which we'll learn a little bit more about this in our conversation. Robert is married, has two kids, 11 and 14 years old. I am very much looking forward to this wide-ranging discussion with Robert Danziger. Welcome, Robert.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation, learning a lot from you about your background and why you wrote this book. And I know you had a big passion and purpose for this, for our listeners to learn. So let's jump in. So one of the questions is, why did you start your company? When did you do it? Why did you write this book? Tell us a little bit of this background, your story, if you would.
Well, I think that I was a physician, or I am a physician, and started out by seeing patients, and I wanted to broaden my impact and went into academics because I would teach medical students and doctors, and they in turn would go out, and that would increase my impact beyond seeing individual patients. Then in the course of this, I realized that there are a lot of people who are not physicians or medical students who are really very smart and very interested in their healthcare and in healthcare in general. I have friends who are engineers, lawyers, etc., and they asked me, well, what do I do about this medical problem? And they could read the material and pursue it as well as I could, and their physician could, if they were given a roadmap to doing it, what the literature is, how to get to the literature, how to find out the key opinion leaders, and so forth. So in the book, The Determined Patient was the incipience of this venture. And in this book, I outline how to choose a physician, what the different types of physicians are, just starting out there. And then I move on to how to determine, what the accepted treatments are and so forth for your disease. Because if you Google diseases or afflictions on internet, you get 1,000 different things for each thing you look up. You don't know what's reputable, what's not reputable. But there are certain sites that are known to be reputable that physicians use, that researchers use. And so I guide you through that. And then there are ways to determine what clinical trials are being done, what experimental work is being done. So I step through that, and then how to read papers, how to read some clinical trials.
Yeah.
So I bring it so as far as I can, so that if you are really a determined patient and want to be really involved in your care and to be an active participant, you can be based on this outline. You can be reading and speaking to your physician or with physicians, or seek out physicians at an equal level as they are, reading the same materials they are.
Was this written in layman's term? Would I
yes, very much so, in very lay terms, layman terms. And I go through how to read papers, and even if you are a layman, you can work your way through with direction with most of the advanced literature by using a dictionary, resources and so forth, and step through and understand at least enough that you can talk to your physician or seek and say, well, what do you think about this treatment? Or what are the negatives of this? And you may actually end up educating your own physician.
So you're like the magician who pulled back the curtain. We get to see the story there, and we get to be
right. It's very important. And the medical system itself is extremely hard to navigate, right from the insurance to picking a physician and so forth. And so this is sort of a outline of how to do all of these things. And it's designed for patients, people who are interested in their healthcare, people who have been told they have a disease that they need to be treated, perhaps one that's not obviously curable in a particular way, or the treatment is not, singular.
I think, I'm such a believer in needing an advocate. Both my sisters are nurses, and they, when my mother was sick, they were able to be that advocate for her. But now I'm dealing with my mother-in-law in Chicago, and I'm not a nurse or doctor. So this is like learning a whole foreign language to me to be able to communicate with the medical professionals. So I bought that book this morning, and I'm going to read it. I don't think it's too late yet. So I really sincerely appreciate it.
It might be very, very helpful.
Yeah. So do you run? So, again, I use the magician an example. They pulled the curtain behind, open so everybody can see. In the magic world, a lot of the magicians don't like that. Did you have hurdles you had to overcome to write this book or go on this venture from the medical community, or are they very open to you doing this?
Yeah, most physicians, I think, are very happy to work with a patient who's well informed and they can converse with at a higher level. So most physicians, I think, are very receptive to a better educated patient.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because there's always a sense of maybe, I'm intruding in this world that they don't want me to ask those questions, but you're caring for a loved one and you really want to ask the right question.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the problems is that there's so much anecdotal information out there, and the frustration is, when a patient or person comes in and says, I read this and this, and then they read it in some irreproducible data, and then you have to step back and say, well, that's not quite your situation.
Yeah, and not to get into the political side of this, but I use COVID as an example. There's so much data going back and forth on both sides of this thing, and us consumers are caught in the middle, and we're reading everything we can read on the internet, and each equally justified the other side of the story. How do we sort through things like that?
Well, the COVID is a pretty good example, because you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of anecdotal literature out there, and it comes from people, researchers anxious to publish, and so they see something that comes out, and the first thing they do is write a paper on it. And the sample sizes can be very small and anecdotal. Newspapers want stories about COVID, so they call up professors and physicians and say, can you give us some quotes or something? Can you tell us a little bit about this? So you're absolutely correct that the amount of literature becomes very large, reliable and not reliable. However, there are certain sources. In the particular case of COVID, I think that what comes out of the CDC, what's published in the New England Journal, and New England Journal has published about 10 or 12 articles on COVID, and these are very, very well vetted. And so that these are probably the most accepted studies of COVID. And so that's sort of a starting point.
A starting point. At least have a place to go where we feel they've sorted out the variances for us.
Right. The reason the New England Journal is known as being so good is because they vet things so well. And the CDC, there's the Harvard Public Health site, which is good, but they take most of their information from the CDC and New England Journal, I think.
Okay. Well, let me, was this a passion of yours? I mean, you and your wife had this discussion on the dinner table for years and finally said, okay, here's this tipping point. We're going to go all in. We're going to put time, energy, resources and get this book written. And how long did it take you to put the book together?
It took about a year, but the book is sort of the starting point as we see it. Now we are putting together a course called the 12-hour MD, and this will be 12 one-hour lectures on each subspecialty in internal medicine for the person who wants to go one step further than beyond just determining how to look in the literature and and find the right physician and determine if they need to find a key opinion leader or if it's adequate to just go to their local hospital. And this is for the person who says, I'd like to learn a little bit more about medicine. And so that's sort of the second step. And we're looking at ways to empower the patients, so that people can become determined patients, play more active roles in their healthcare and improve their healthcare by doing that.
Okay. So you're a doctor by trade, but you also are jumping in as a business person, right? You're starting this business venture. Is that a fair statement? And in this program regarding the determined patient, what was that a dream of yours also to go into business? I know.
Yes, I did. My big decision in going to medical school was whether to go into business or into medicine. And my father was in business and very passionate about it. And he thought that I should go into business because he thought medicine was pretty routine, but every situation in business presented a new and different challenge. And I was very, very torn. And when I went into medicine, but I've always sort of kept a foot in business. My father had started a business, and then my mother ran it after he passed away. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I got an MBA later. So I hopefully can merge the two in this venture.
Well, let's talk about that. Have you faced some challenges on the business side to get this launched, or that our listeners learn from?
Absolutely. I think I faced the problem that many contemporary startups do. Traditionally, I used business plans and so forth, but I think that a lot of people, do it on the fly now, on the entrepreneurial side, and it's a challenge because you sort of keep in mind, how are you going to scale this, and and how can you do a pro forma revenue stream that's going to make this a profitable venture. And it's not always very clear in these internet and new entrepreneurial ventures. I think of many examples that they gave us in the MBA class of this, like I don't know if you're familiar with this Pandora Music. Mm-hmm. There was really no business model there. It was one of the guy. Should I tell the story or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the person who started, whose name will pop into my mind shortly, he was hired by one of the producers, by some producers in Hollywood or in California, to pick scores and things for music. But he wanted to pick lesser known people so that the revenue, so he wouldn't have to pay so much. And so this guy developed a way of classifying music by the tempo, like 16 different things, the tempo, vocal, whatnot. And so that he could be pretty good if the producer said, I'd like a music that sounds like the soundtrack from such and such a song, a movie. And so then he sort of expanded that with the idea, and he had a few other musicology majors doing that with lots and lots of unknown artists and so forth, and with no business model in mind. And then it was when he went for venture capital that that the venture capital actually had the idea for the Pandora radio and selection of songs, and that's how it was monetized. But
great story.
Yeah, but the challenge is how how you see the scaling realistically, and you know, and what and how you're going to price things, especially in this inflationary and bizarre environment that we're in now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, some really need more of the business plan written, and they kind of stay in that position for a long, long time and almost never get it launched. And some kind of do it on a wing and a prayer. And maybe
Right.
Pandora had a good, they got lucky. How's that? But nonetheless, you got to get started. And I'm sure you now, how long are you just launching this business, or has it been out there for a while?
We've done it for about a year. We've got about 5,000 people that followers on our website for our the Determined Patient book, which is the website, the Determined Patient book. And we've got about 1,000 people who have pre-signed up for our course, the 12-hour MD.
Well, all right. So you had a year. You've out there proving the concept. Looking back, would you have done anything differently?
I think I need another year or two to look back, and then I probably will have lots of things that I would have done differently. Again, the issue is how you're going. I mean, there are significant costs involved. I've used marketing person, I've used writers and whatnot. And, it's how you're going to be able to, if you're going to be able to generate a revenue stream that's going to be able to sustain this.
Yeah, I love the approach. You're right. And maybe you'll come back on the podcast in a couple of years and we'll ask the same question, see what you'll learn since then. But,
yes.
Yeah,
hindsight is 2020.
But knowing what you know today, so we're just going to go with today's information. What quotes, advice, practices, disciplines do you use to help motivate you? You're obviously a very busy person running this business and being a doctor. What keeps you in the game? Keeps you moving you forward?
Well, I think that like most people, I want to contribute, and I'd like to contribute in the most impactful way that I can. And I think that means reaching the most people and helping the most people.
Do you have mentors? Do you have people coaching you to help you do this, or are you just you and your wife doing the self-coaching? Or
no, my wife works for Baxter, so she's had a fair amount of experience, and she's been there about 20 years. She's a nephrologist by training.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's no, I mean I've used the courses at the University of Chicago. I've taken a couple of their entrepreneurial courses in addition to my MBA, and I find them very, very, very good. And then I've tried to tap as much information as I can from marketing people, from PR people, from the writer that I work with, and each has some knowledge base that they bring. They're not always in agreement, and they have other motives as well. But those have been my main sources, because this is really out of my area of expertise. This marketing a book, marketing a course, marketing education.
Now, you obviously you teach as well. You're a professor. Are you the one, if I sign up for your course, are you the instructor? Do you have other instructors? Tell us a little bit, maybe the logistic. Is this just a subscription model type thing?
Right now, it's a subscription model, and we're putting it together. And it will be 12 lectures by 12 specialists in each of the areas of internal medicine. So pulmonary, lung, or cardiology. And each lecture will start out as 1 hour, and it's very basic, and it sort of covers the rudimentary things that you would do as an MD or an internist. So, for example, in pulmonary, it starts out how the lungs work, 10 minutes on how the lungs work, what they look like. Then the second part is about 20 minutes, and that is everything the various major things that can go wrong with the lung, the diseases of the lungs. COPD, emphysema, pneumonias. And then the third part is how these are treated and what the prognosis is. And we do that for cardiology, for endocrinology, for each of the specialties. And so by the time you're done, you have sort of a broad overview of all the specialties. If that's, to take you one step further, I guess the next step after that would be go to medical school.
Okay, you might be arming us a little dangerous here, having too little information on a big subject. But now those recorded. So if I have a subscription model, I can go watch the video or watch the recording again.
Yeah, these are being put together. These are being put together now, and they'll be by different specialists.
Okay, and is this, in fact, let's talk about this for our listeners. So if they want to do this, what are some of the steps that they would do, and where would they go to find this information? And
it's the 12. There's a website. It's called the 12-Hour MD, and it's linked. It will be linked to the Determined Patient book as well, so you can get to either thing through either website.
All right, I will put that in the notes of this podcast too.
Thank you very much.
Is there can you share with us, is there a cost already established, or is it still in formulation here?
We're doing it $10 pre-subscription, subscription pricing.
Really, $10 a month, and we can get all this access to this information.
$10 one time.
$10 one time? We get access. We get all that.
Yeah. It's very, pricing is very hard because I don't know what how it's valued, because the competition not for online courses ranges from everything from universities who put things universities vary from putting things on for nothing to fairly large fees for online courses. There's Coursera. There's a lot out there, and there's a large range of pricing on these online courses. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the issues. What will the market tolerate? What will it? What's the maximum? What's a value? And that's something that I'm sort of approaching. $10 people are signing up. It's quite easy. And we've only had it up for like a month, and we've got 1,000 people already. So,
well, I would tell you, all of our listeners, we're early adopters. Get in at $10 a month, because I think that's way undervalued. I don't know what the price point should be.
Okay.
Yeah, but what you're doing is serving the general masses of people who have this issue. This is something that's been long waiting. We're all wrestling with how to be a good advocate, and the way the medical system is going, the need to be an advocate is even more so. And so I'm extremely grateful for you doing this. So I'll be a test market for you. I'll go through the program.
Well, thank you very much.
Excuse me. I imagine you're a lifelong learner. Anything you're studying right now that kind of keeps you motivated?
Well, I'm very interested in behavioral economics, behavioral heuristics, and shortcuts that people use to think about things, and mistakes they make, like the Kahneman fast and slow thinking, nudge, these type of business books of heuristics and mistakes.
Yeah, I love that. I love reading business books too. So actually, I'll put the notes of those books in this podcast, because Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great, and almost everybody's read that book. But a lot of people's never read his other book called Why the Mighty Fall, and and some of those companies that are in his Good to Great book or in his book had fallen in these major corporations. So it's an interesting book to read, because the other side of behavioral business and some of these companies got off course, and he covers that whole side. So you get the bookends of business. Well, anyhow, so real quick, how can the listeners get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about your services?
I have my website, the determinedpatientbook.com, which has a contact. Also, my I'll even give you my phone number, 847-417-4633. The easiest way is probably through the website.
Yeah. All right, we'll put it on there. We'll put it on. It's already out there now. It's in the universe.
Okay.
Robert, this has been a fascinating conversation. And I, again, just want to support what you and your wife are doing. And I'm looking forward to reading the book. Looking forward to being one of your subscribers. I'm in the heat of the battle. Much. Yeah, I'm in the heat of the battle right now. My mother-in-law is 94. We're moving to assisted living, and the whole family is trying to navigate this conversation. So that it's very timely.
It's a very complex system, and yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. And this podcast will be up for our listeners here in probably a couple of weeks. And again, Robert, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Rich LeBrun here. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Get It Done, Entrepreneurs. If you are a successful business owner who would like to be on this program, please visit us at rlebrun.com/podcast and fill out the form, and we will reach out to you. If you got something out of this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag GetItDoneEntrepreneurs. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, rlebrun.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.